This is my second consultation call with Trade Brigade. This is episode 2, part 4. And in this video, Trade Brigade gives me his inputs as I have made improvements from the previous consultation call we had. Your strategy will always be evolving, especially as you improve as a day trader in your day trading career. So that is important to understand as you grow, just to provide context and give an example of what it is I'm trying to say. Because again, this is how I evolved from this consultation call, which took place in the month of April, compared to the one in March. So again, it's always progressing and evolving. Now, in my 2 years of experience, many things have changed with how I do my pre-market analysis. The amount of times I take a trade in a day, in a week, in a month, the way I enter trades, the way I exit trades, the way I manage trades in the middle, etc. All of that has evolved up until now, and it's going to keep on evolving. The important part is to build a data set. A data set, for all of you that don't know, is basically you see the trades you take on a regular basis. You see what works with your trades, what doesn't work with your trades, and you filter out what doesn't work. You get the hell out of here, and you put in what works along with your setups and your strategy and your personality. So, with that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe to Daytradinknockout. Sorry, I don't got the hat right now. Experiments. Let's get into the video. Peace out, my fellow millionaire day traders.
So actually, you'll see that from the last time I met, I actually did transition to more of a naked chart. So
yeah, on the right, I like that.
Yeah. So I noticed that using those indicators, I always knew that it was better for me with a naked chart, but I tried it. So again, more success with it. But anyways, to the third question. Oh, and I also downloaded Trade-Evate as well, and I started using Market Profile for that also.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool, man. Those books that you recommended me to read last time, I ordered the first one, Mind Over Markets with Jim Dalton. I've gotten through most of it. I would have finished it off. I skimmed through it, but
it's a heavy book, huh?
Yeah, it's a heavy book. Yeah, I've been reading through it, and then I stop at a certain point, take a bunch of notes, and then I'll back test kinda, and try to go through scenarios that the book talks about, basically. So, basically the first one I got is about my pre-market setup. So I have a whole list that I made in regards to what I read from that book, things that you talk about, and just, I guess, things that you could say from experience that, is a good thing to do, I guess. So the first thing is I go through the news and see how it affects the, I'm just going to read through everything kind of, and you tell me what you think about it. And then I'll also show you my Trade-Evate account also and stuff like that. So hold on.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first thing is I see how the news is affecting the market, basically. And I'll talk about is the whole theme of everything bearish, bullish, yada, yada, yada. And then I go here on my TOS account. I'll go on I call it the 4-hour chart, but I'll look at a day time frame first. And then, I look to see if there's any long-term tails, range extensions, long-term excess, gap days, who had more control, things like that. Then I try to make the most educated guess of what most likely the psychology of the market is currently. And I also check to see if we're at any key levels, areas of support or resistance, things like that. And then I also check to see if we're in a bracketed market. And in the book, it says to ask yourself 2 questions: which way is the market going, and is it doing a good job going that way? So I kind of use those 2 questions that Jim Dalton puts in the book to say how is the market moving right now. And then I'll go and do to the market profile, and then I'll do what he said was the auction rotation factor, where you plus or minus the highs and lows of the TPOs depending on where they closed out, kind of. And then just look to see if it's a neutral day, a normal day, or a trending day on the market profile. Was it a P day, a B day? Let's see what else. And then pretty much after that, it's just see if we're opening near high or low volume nodes from previous days and stuff like that. Then after that, it's just the 3 questions that you ask in the day, for gap rules and inside rules. So that's my whole that's my whole setup for the pre-market plan. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I love it, man. I think you've got a pretty comprehensive look of what's going on. I think starting on the news is good because it wants to be the last thing on our minds as we're headed into the actual open. Like you said, it's worth just understanding, like, okay, are there a lot of upgrades being issued this morning, downgrades being issued this morning, or are we dealing with a market that is just, for me, I just briefly glance at CNBC right in the morning stream there, and if it's filled with just like political nonsense headlines, then I know there's nothing really big going on in the market. But if it's filled with like multiple upgrades to Apple because they're releasing something or whatever, right? That obviously has much more of a bullish connotation to it and something to be worth thinking about in the back of your mind. But as we move closer to the bell, we want that to be further away from our thought process than the technical. So I like the order at which you're doing things. I think looking at the news right before the open is like the last thing in the process would be terrible. So I like that. I like also that you are considering the higher time frames. That's something that's super important. And it's one of the reasons why obviously we walked through the 4 hour on the stream. I think too many people get caught up in like, okay, what's the 5-minute trend doing right in front of my face? Which can, as we know, oftentimes be different than what the higher time frame trend is. So I like that. I like that you're thinking about the psychology of participants. I love the 2 questions that Dalton asks. What is the market doing and how good of a job is it doing that thing? Definitely a really important question, right? Because if we can see that the market's trying to, like, let's actually use, for example, right now, what's going on in the current context. The narrative out there is overwhelmingly bearish, right? Banks are blowing up. Jerome Powell is going to cause a recession. People are going to get laid off. Everything's going to explode, basically.
Yeah.
Well, if the market is trying to move lower, if the bearish narrative is truly what's going to take place, then, that's what the market's trying to do, supposedly trying to do. All it takes is asking question number 2, how good of a job is the market doing trying to do that thing? And we know the answer right off the bat is terrible. It's not moving lower by any stretch of the imagination. I would argue it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I know you made a joke. We're in a 4-hour uptrend on the ES, and you said if you don't see that, you should maybe consult with an eye doctor, possibly.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The market's, if you're a bear right now, you should be shaking in your boots because the market is doing a terrible job of moving lower based on the narrative.
Yeah.
So if you ask yourself those questions in the morning, you're already on the right path to at least avoiding the trap of trying to short this thing into the ground. So that's fantastic. I personally don't use the TPO subtraction method, the what, I forget what he called it, option rotation.
Option rotation factor, yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't use that. Like, I think what's useful about the most useful thing to me is like understanding the profile shapes, where the high volume nodes are. That's all really good stuff. I personally don't use the rotation factor. And that's the beauty of like learning from multiple people. You can take little bits of each person and combine them into something that works for you. I just find that rotation piece doesn't really help out a ton for me. Not saying don't do it. If you want to continue to do it, that's great. You can continue to do so. I personally don't. I think that profile shape is really important to pay attention to, like you said. P and B shape profiles specifically to tell us whether or not we're in a market that is just being run by short covering or long liquidation. Because understanding that those people are the ones moving the market would then tell us to be slightly more cautious about big follow through type moves, just because we don't have new money buyers, we don't have new money sellers. The market's just kind of responding to people being caught, quote unquote, offsides, right? So I love everything you've sort of mentioned about your plan. I think everything, like, to me is like perfectly in alignment with kind of what I would do as well. So yeah, I love to hear it. Love to hear that you're thinking about all of these mechanics in the market. I think taking this well-rounded approach probably sets you up for a better understanding than like 90% of other traders, you know, the context of the higher time frame. Where are we in relationship to high volume nodes? Should the market be drawn to the prior day's point of control? Are we inside the prior day's value area, right? All these things tell us a lot about what should and shouldn't happen on the opening bell. So I love to hear it. I love to hear it. I think you're